My next one on my list is the Department of Education. It'll be on YouTube someday. The liberals would have you believe that when God came down on earth and created Adam and Eve, he created the Department of Education. That is what the liberals would have you believe. And it was created under the Carter administration. Prior to that, education was always a local and state issue. Go home tonight and read your Virginia Constitution. Guess who has the constitutional authority and mandate to provide a quality public education to every citizen in Virginia? It's Virginia. It's the Virginia General Assembly's job, not the federal government. So now we take our money and we ship it up to Washington, D.C., and their bureaucrats take a nice hefty cut, and then they send down all what's left over with a whole bunch of rules attached. Now, I already heard someone mention that earlier tonight. All the regulations that you have to live under. Another one is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Yes. Now look, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac has had 14 of 15 losing quarters. Raise your hand if you think that's a good business model. The total taxpayer bailout of Fannie and Freddie Mac is now over $300 billion. The first quarter of this year, they claimed an over $8 billion loss. In 2011, not 2008 when the housing bubble burst, in 2011, and now they've come back to all of us and they want another $600 billion because, you know, this time they might actually get it right. Why is the federal government involved in the mortgage banking business? At all. Everyone pull out your Constitution and look up Fannie Mae, because it's not in there. That belongs in the private market. Which brings me to my next question, is do we or do we not truly believe in free markets? Do we believe in free markets? Or do we think that we should be manipulating the markets and picking winners and losers? How's that worked out for you? Because the federal government has this nice little habit of picking the losers and bailing out the losers. I've yet to see them pick a winner. Do we believe in free markets? So my first one is restore fiscal sanity. Restore fiscal sanity, and the way you do that is you have to ask that fundamental question. Do we believe in a constitutionally limited government? And then you start looking at what's left over and you start looking about what needs to be scaled back. The second one is you have to reform entitlements. Any politician who tells you that they want to get us out of our debt situation and solve the fiscal problem, but they don't want to talk about entitlement reform, is absolutely lying to you. It is over 60% of the budget. It consumes the budget. And the left keeps saying, you know, they're going to shrink your slice of the pie. They're going to shrink your slice of the pie. Well, they have stolen your Social Security money year after year. They have stolen your Medicare, and you're worried about them shrinking your slice of the pie. They ate it already. They ate your slice of the pie. We need an entitlement reform that puts you back in control of your retirement, puts you back in control of your health care, that you're picking your doctors, that it's consumer-driven. I mean, for those of us that have had Social Security raided and stolen, would you really recommend to your grandchildren for them to pursue the same route? Truly? If you love your grandchildren, I hope you don't. So we have to look at reforming entitlements, because this has nothing to do with how small or big your slice of the pie is. And Republicans are horrible about messaging on this subject, and my opponent refuses to take a position on it. This has nothing to do about how small or big your slice of the pie is. This is about, is there a pie? for someone to take a slice from. That is the discussion right now. But they would have you believe that it's about fighting for a slice that really doesn't exist. So we've got to reform entitlements and put you, the consumer, back in charge. The third thing is that we've got to revitalize the economy. Because you can shrink the size of the federal government and cut the spending, but if we don't grow the economy, we're still going to be in a whole lot of hurt. It is amazing what President Obama has achieved in 2.5 years. It is amazing. I sit in awe. Seriously, I do. In 2.5 years, he has spent almost $5 trillion. He has mandated an Obamacare program that will cost well over $1 trillion, and that's without the program even being implemented yet. We have over 9% unemployment with people on for at least a minimum of 40 weeks, which is the highest ever. 1 in every 7 Americans is on food stamps, which is the highest share of the population ever in the history of this country. We have a TARP program and a stimulus program that have failed, that spent over $287,000 for every job, quote unquote, saved. And he's managed to achieve all of that and a AA plus downgrade, all in your nice little 2.5 years. We have to revitalize the economy. And how do you do that? We have the highest business tax rates in the world, in the industrialized world, higher than communist China, a main competitor. And we have, as you all know all too well, being in Matthews and Gloucester County, some of the most job-killing, suffocating regulations in the world. And I mean regulations on every front. I mean regulations from the EPA and from Agenda 21 and the Dodd-Frank regulations and on and OSHA, and it goes on and on and on. And whether I've talked to the commercial fishermen in Charles County on herring fishing and what they're doing to that industry, whether I talked to the dairy farmer in Southwest Virginia that told me they used to have 200 grade A and grade B dairy farms, and guess how many they have now? 3. Whether I talked to the furniture maker in Galax, Virginia, who told me he used to make American furniture. Novel concept. Make American furniture. 8 years ago, he said, he goes, I probably had about 1,850 employees. I go, about? That's pretty accurate. About 1,850 employees. He said in 2008, he shut his last factory down, and they now have 27 employees. I said, now, well, how do you make American furniture with 27 employees? He said, I don't. I import. I said, why do you import? I said, was it cheap wages, regulations, or taxes? It had nothing to do with wages. It was regulations and taxes. Where highest tax rate in the world. And the regulations, the American Lumber Company got a 15% tax break if they sold their American lumber to any underdeveloped country, including China. But if they took their American lumber and they sold it to the American Furniture Company in Galax, Virginia, they got no tax break. Do you see what I'm talking about? We're proactively killing jobs. So we tell the American businessmen, we want your feet bound, we're going to handcuff you behind your back, we're going to put blindfolds on, duct tape your mouth, earplugs in, and then we want to kick you out there and we want to tell you, go compete with China. That's exactly what we do. And this has nothing, who said water? That was good. I'm going to add that to my deal.